Hey everyone, welcome into Attacking Third and our first ever A3 one shot where we are tackling one topic in the moment that arises, whether it's breaking news or something we just didn't get to cover yet. Alongside Sandra Herrera, I'm Lisa Carlin. Sandra, you ready for this?
It's good to be back, bud. This feels familiar. I remember way back in the day when we used to just be live all the time. Kind of feels like that right now.
We are going live. Today's A3 one shot is reports that U.S. men's national team legend Landon Donovan will serve as the interim head coach of the San Diego Wave. There have been reports swirling around of this. He could potentially make his coaching debut with the Wave on Tuesday when San Diego Wave plays Santa Fe FC in Panama in the CONCACAF W Champions Cup. This comes after a bit of a up and down roller coaster at the head coaching position for San Diego. Casey Stoney, the first ever head coach of the Wave, was fired in June after her 3-year tenure, and that was amid a 7-game winless streak. The club then named Paul Buckle as the immediate interim head coach, announcing at the time that they were going to start a global search for a new permanent head coach commencing immediately. Paul Buckle only coached 2 regular season games in which he lost both of those, and then 3 Summer Cup matches, posting a record of 1-1-1, and the only draw, San Diego ended up losing 5-3 in penalties to Angel City. But now we have reports of Landon Donovan stepping in as the second interim. Sandra, what more do you know?
Yeah, I think that's important to note here that this is an additional interim hire. I think there's been a lot of confusion, maybe circulating a little bit around some of the rumors. I think at one point, folks were kind of coming with pitchforks saying, like, how is this going to be the next head coach? But look, sources have confirmed to CBS Sports at this point that this is something that is going to happen. Landon Donovan will have a head coaching role with Wave FC, but it's going to be kind of as another interim position for Wave FC. As you just noted through some of the timeline, Lisa, they're in the process of an ongoing search for the next official head coach. And while at one point Paul Buckle was slated to be the interim head coach, sources also confirmed that his time was essentially going to be kind of through the duration of the summer, that the longer term goal was to hopefully have a head coaching hire at the summer's conclusion. But unfortunately, they want to give themselves some more time for a more thorough vetting process with this role. And in the meantime, there's going to be a superstar leading this team.
Absolutely crazy. Currently, San Diego Wave FC, they're in the middle of the NWSL regular season break that will resume in about a week's time from now. But in the league, they sit in 10th place with 15 points, 3 wins, 6 draws, and 7 losses. They've scored 12 goals and they've conceded 17. Sandra, it hasn't been the best season for San Diego. Considering everything that they've been through. They won the Shield in 2023. They did win the Challenge Cup before the NWSL regular season kicked off in March, but that is not good enough for the owners and management, hence this coaching carousel that we see. Do you expect a big uptick in performance on the pitch with Landon Donovan at the helm?
I mean, I hope so. I think that's the goal, right? I think you're getting a candidate in the mix here who's a former player, and not just any former player, one of the most iconic players of the U.S. men's national team program. So I understand that there's, like most things, a lot of layers to this. It's going to be met with maybe a mixed reaction. We're already seeing that and feeling that right now as we're even talking about this a little bit. On the one hand, you're maybe excited as someone who's perhaps a season ticket holder of Wave FC, saying, okay, well, what's gonna happen here? What can this mean? On the other hand, there's a very rational, understandable reasoning around going this route. Having someone in line for a head coaching role, even in an interim position, who is coming from a background that, yes, has playing experience at the highest level, but also doesn't have that experience coaching among women's soccer, has not often found themselves as someone who has navigated within women's soccer spaces. All of those things can be true. And that is, I think, what this kind of preliminary reaction to this news, kind of the temperature right now.
You touched on Donovan's playing resume. He holds the record for most international assists at 58. He is tied for the record of most international goals by an American, tied with Clint Dempsey for 57. He's won 6 MLS Cup. MLS MVP award was renamed to the Landon Donovan MVP award. So it is no doubt that Landon Donovan is an absolutely stellar and was a stellar player at his time, but it is a different role, coaching not only women, but in the NWSL, and coaching a team that has seen a lot of success in its 3 short years of life so far in San Diego and in the NWSL. But this is a very competitive, tight league that he is stepping into with a ton of pressure to perform, especially considering that the head coach was fired because of a lack of performance, which a lot of people might argue wasn't necessarily the right call, considering she had already brought 2 trophies to the club in her 3 years there. But the 7-game skid wasn't good enough for the club at this point. The pressure is definitely mounting for Landon Donovan when this announcement comes ultimately, because it is still rumored at this point. Do you think we could see him coaching as early as Tuesday when the CONCACAF W Champions Cup starts with San Diego in Panama?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's part of kind of getting him into the mix and kind of seeing some of these reports out there at this moment. Sources have indicated that he's likely to address media ahead of that game. So stay tuned for that. But I think it's not unfair, right, to kind of go over those points that you just mentioned, Lisa, because part of the angles within this recent news is how the Wave got here. How did the Wave get here in this situation where all of a sudden they are finding themselves naming not the first, but the second interim head coach for the team this year, just a couple of months or weeks at this point removed from parting ways with Casey Stoney. And I don't know if it's going to be received with such, one-sided kind of enthusiasm. Again, there's going to be some complex layers to all this, but I would hope that perhaps not only the Wave, but someone like Landon Donovan will also kind of embrace that challenge as well. I think the concept of looking at NWSL and saying that that's a stepping stone, I think you need to flip that script a little bit. The pressure's on Donovan to come into this role and perform well at this level. We're talking about a Division I professional women's league in this country. The NWSL is the top flight league of domestic women's soccer in America. The pressure is on him to do well.
Absolutely. It's almost reminiscent a little bit of Houston Dash and having their coaching carousel that ended up with the Houston Dash having 3 coaches in just a span of 2 seasons, with Sarah Loudon acting, Juan Carlos Amorós stepping in, Sam Lady was there, Sarah Loudon came back, and then Fran Alonso being hired. The search at San Diego Wave for the permanent head coach is still ongoing. That is a global search. Any updates on that for us?
Yeah, this is part of Donovan's role in with this team moving forward. This is going to be a second half of the season where multiple teams, not just San Diego, are finding themselves in that late second half playoff push. They're finally going to eventually return to regular season play next week, and playoff picture is expanded. As we know, we've been talking about it all year. You have to try to get at least an 8 seed to go ahead and compete within the postseason. Can San Diego do that? It would be an incredible story for them if somehow they turn things around and it happened to be Donovan at the helm of this team. But it's not going to be easy by any means. There are a ton of other teams who are maybe fighting in that kind of gray area of competition for those lower playoff seeds. And maybe some people might even argue, returning into the regular season, that other teams are better equipped or more prepared to kind of handle this second half load.
San Diego sitting currently in 10th place, 15 points, 10 matches left in the NWSL regular season before we get to the playoffs. The top 8 teams make it there, and it is safe to say that San Diego's goal was not only to be at the top of the standings, but ultimately make their way through playoffs and win a championship. It is the one trophy that has eluded their short 3-year career in San Diego. Reports that San Diego Wave is set to name U.S. men's national team legend Landon Donovan as the interim head coach. And this was our A3 one shot, where that's it. That's all we're talking about. The biggest news that has broken. Of course, there's been a lot of news and notes that have also happened over the last 24 hours or so. We will touch on all of it when we are back in studio on Monday. Some of the biggest news points before we let you go for the weekend, just to tickle your fancy. Orlando Pride have acquired defender Carson Pickett from Racing Louisville in exchange for $75,000 in allocation money. Pickett returning to Orlando. She was there in 2018 and 2019, spent 2 years in North Carolina and then 2 years in Louisville. Elsewhere in the transfer news, Gotham FC has signed Portuguese forward Jessica Silva through 2024. She comes from Benfica via a free transfer. And out of Kansas City, the Current announced the signing of Jericho. She is the captain of the Kenyan national team, and she was the Turkish Women's Super League star. She's agreed to a contract with Kansas City Current through 2025 with an option for the 2026 season. Tottenham Hotspur have confirmed the signing of Australian defender Claire Hunt. She'll be there on a 3-year deal through 2027. We will go more in depth on all of these transfers, the news, and any updates on San Diego Wave head coach and interim head coach in Monday when we are back in studio. Don't forget, if you voted for us for the People's Choice Podcast Award, the best female hosted podcast, you might be eligible to vote for us again. So check your email and vote for us in the final. Thanks everyone so much for joining us, and make sure to follow Attacking Third wherever you get your podcasts and leave us a 5-star rating and review. If you liked this A3 one shot, let us know. We want to hear from you. We're also available on youtube.com/Attacking Third, and you can watch us on the CBS Sports Golazo Network for all your women's football coverage. For Mark, Sandra, I'm Lisa. This was Attacking Third.